Hello and welcome to the book launch for Born to be Soldiers, Those Plucky Women of World War II. This is my book about the women who volunteered to join the military during World War II, and I couldn't think of a better word for them but plucky, because they were brave, they were frontiersmen, they were pioneers, starting new things and telling people that they could do things that people were telling them that they couldn't or shouldn't do. And we do have a special guest with us today. She is one of the 13 women in the book. There are stories about women who joined the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Army Nurse Corps, and the Women's Air Service Pilots, or the WASP. And all of those stories are from people that I have interviewed. I have interviewed 260 World War II veterans. This is my 10th book of their stories, and I couldn't be more pleased to give a book just to the ladies. They're interspersed between my other books, but I wanted to pull them out and give them all the attention in this book. We have with us today one of the ladies in the book, this very beautiful woman right here, who was a volunteer. She volunteered to serve. Now, when I say that, I mean there's never been a military draft in the United States for women, for females. So all of the women who have ever served in the military have been volunteers, and I think that's outstanding. And in fact, I'll just add one further thing. We've not had a military draft since 1973. So for almost 50 years, every person who has been in the military has been a volunteer. And I'm a proud Air Force wife and mother. So all my writing is military at this point, and I do it to support our military and help preserve our military heritage and to promote patriotism, because I think we live in a great country. All right, one of the best people I've met to show what a great country we live in is sitting right here with me today. We're actually in her home, and this is Doris Eileen Stuckey Zeissig. We know her as Eileen, but I noticed her dog tags over here. You want to pull out your dog tags? They're very small. You won't be able to see it, but when I looked at them, they actually had the word Doris, her first name, printed on here. Doris Stuckey, which was her maiden name, and then her serial number. So all the vets I've interviewed, not all of them have had dog tags. So this is pretty great. I love that we have several items here today to show you of Eileen's. So welcome, Eileen. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Well, thank you. I'm very privileged to be interviewed, you know. At this age, I may stumble a little bit, but that's all right.
Well, you definitely belie. I don't even know if I have mentioned, she is 100 years old. She turned 100 last September, and so she is 100 years old, and with COVID, didn't get to have the big birthday you might have wanted, but she's pretty happy. She has a lot of friends, and so we have some of them here today who we will be showcasing as they help us. So I do want to thank Sam Steiner for doing our filming, and my husband John is here as well. So couldn't do what I do without my husband. He's a huge help. But to get back to Eileen, so Eileen, tell me where you were born.
Bern, Indiana in 1921.
Okay, all right.
And graduated from Bern High School in 1939. And do you want me to go on?
Sure. What did you do after that?
Well, in 1939, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what kind of a career. There weren't too many for women other than secretaries and nurses. And our senior trip, we went to Riley Hospital, and we saw the children's unit, and that gave me the idea I wanted to be a nurse. And I came home and I told my folks, I would like to be a nurse. And they said, well, we'll have to scare up some money to send you, you know. But in the meantime, I had worked in one of the restaurants washing dishes for $1 a day. Can you imagine? Anyway, I saved my money and was able to pay my first year tuition at Lutheran Hospital.
Okay. And Lutheran Hospital in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Wayne.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And where were you then when Pearl Harbor happened?
We were on the ward, and someone came rushing and said, come down here to the to a room where we could sit and listen to the radio, and they said they're bombing Pearl Harbor. Well, no one knew where Pearl Harbor was. Where's Pearl Harbor? And it was such a shock. And so after that, why I got to thinking, I may just join the Army. I don't know.
Okay, so that was December 7th of 1941. And over the next couple of years, you had 3 brothers,
Right.
and they went into...
My oldest brother was in the Air Force. He was a bombardier in the 8th Air Force, and he was stationed in England. And my second brother, Gaylord, he ended up in Japan, but that was after the VJ Day.
Okay.
And then my youngest brother did not go overseas, but he was in the States. But my mother and dad had a flag with 4 stars in my front room window at home.
And that indicated 4 members of the family who were currently in the military for the war. Okay. So where was the first? So when did you go into the military?
In 1944.
In 1944.
I graduated in 43, in the fall of 43.
From nursing school.
From nursing school, and I worked at the Bluffton Clinic for a few months, and then in June I went out to Bearfield and signed up. I wanted to be in the Air Force, and they said there weren't any positions, so I said, okay, I'll take the Army.
And you wanted to be a nurse, is that right?
Okay. That's right.
And so where did you go from there?
We went to Fort Ben Harrison in Indianapolis, and that was kind of we were supposed to take basic training. If you can imagine, women trying to march and being very, very patriotic and so forth. We were in a parade, and it started to rain, and we broke ranks and ran to the building, to the barracks, and boy did we get reamed out by the chief nurse, because we were not very military. Oh, that was okay. But then I spent a month there getting my basic training, gas masks and all that, I didn't have a gun, but they would they would hand us gas masks, and then we would just hold them, and pretty soon we started coughing and realized they had
real gas.
They had put gas around there, so we finally slapped the helmets on.
Could I just say one thing?
Yeah.
If you're watching this and you would like to leave a comment for Eileen, like a note of thanks for her service, please put that in the comment section. We will get that to her so that she'll be aware of that. And also, we're going to be giving away a copy of the book today to those of you who put a comment and then put your birth month and day. You don't have to put the year. And I'll tell you at the end what we're going to do with that information. One of those people will be the winners of this book, okay? All right. So you were at Benjamin Harrison.
Then I got assigned to Ashford General Hospital, which at one time was the Greenbrier Hotel. Beautiful, beautiful building. It was
in White
Sulphur Springs,
West Virginia.
And the Greenbrier was started in the 1800s. Presidents from Washington would come and take uh, they had the springs down there, and they would come, and it was a gorgeous place, velvet curtains and very expensive, but they turned it into a general hospital, and that's where I was stationed then, and we lived in cottages that were up on a small elevation hill, and then we had to walk down to the hospital whenever we went on duty. And we worked, some days we worked 12 hours a day, and some days we worked 8 hours. It depended on what was needed. And we had one day off a week, and it was a beautiful place, and not only that, they had good food.
Now, who were you treating there?
We were treating patients that were brought from overseas. We had troop trains come in, and then they were sent there, treated, and then sent to their various homes
Hometowns.
in different states. But I can remember very clearly, I had a ward of 12 paraplegic patients. At that time, they were paralyzed from the waist down, and at that time we did not have the technique to treat them, and as far as I know, they did not survive. And then I also worked in after surgery. We had patients that were operated on. We saved most of them, but it was in a recovery area, and so it was quite interesting and heartbreaking in a lot of ways.
How did you then get overseas?
Well, I wasn't very, I was very patriotic, but I wasn't, what was the word term to use?
Brave?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I was sitting on a bed with a soldier who was sobbing, and he was very ill, and I was holding his hand, and the officer of the day came around and saw me sitting on the bed and turned me in, and I thought, in that case, I'll go down to the chief nurse, because she called me in to bawl me out. I said, okay, if you don't want me here, send me overseas. And that's what she did.
So you weren't supposed to be sitting on the bed.
Oh, definitely
or even
not.
consoling.
No, you were ranked. And I was a nurse first, not an officer second. But things like that.
Okay.
But these trains would bring in these troops, and then we would take care of them, treat them, and send them on.
Okay. So you went overseas. Which was the first country you went to?
I must tell you, there were 200 of us nurses boarded the Ile-de-France ship.
Okay.
There were 6 of us in a stateroom, what you call a stateroom. They were bunks.
Okay.
And we had we had 6 bunks. We had to keep our life preservers with us all the time. And then they had different times that you could go to the mess hall and eat, and so a couple of the girls were so seasick they couldn't go and eat. But I wasn't. Anyway, we had a submarine drill too. They had sighted one, and we had to get out on the deck with our life jackets. And it was kind of scary, but we ended up in Scotland, and in Scotland, we got on a troop train and went to England.
Okay. And those would have been German subs that were in the
Oh,
Atlantic.
definitely,
Okay,
yes.
okay. So you took the troop train down to England, and then you went across the channel, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
May I
Yes.
tell you about my brother?
Absolutely.
Well, my brother was in the 8th Air Force, and he was a bombardier, and he met a lovely English girl, and he was going to get married. And he found out that I had been that I was in England, and so he contacted me, wanted me to come to the wedding, which was up in Norwich, England, and the chief nurse said, okay, I'll give you leave for 2 days. So she says, I think you ought to have somebody go with you. So there was another gal there, just as green as I was. So we hopped on the train in London and went up to Norwich and met my brother. And to make a long story short, he and I I wanted to talk to him, and the only way I could was to go out and walk. We were walking down the street and the MP stopped us. And they said, you're fraternizing. We said, no, we're brother and sister. They didn't believe us at first, but we showed them our IDs, and they apologized, so Les invited them to the reception, so they came.
You were almost in trouble. Okay.
No fraternization.
Now, you were the officer and your brother was not. And
He was a staff sergeant.
And that's strictly, I think it's still
Right.
part of their protocol
Right.
today. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, did you go over to France then?
Yes,
Soon? at that point?
from England, I went to France, to Reims, and there we lived in tents, and it was more of a staging area at that time. And then I wasn't there too long. I got to go to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower and some of the things, on 1 day leave. And then I got orders to go to Germany.
Can I just ask, do you know, was the war over yet in Germany?
Yes, no, the war, yeah.
In Germany?
We had a VE Day.
Okay.
Yes, so the war was over in Germany.
Okay.
And so it was a mopping up. Oh, and I must tell you, in France, we were being shipped on trucks. I mean, we rode on trucks with benches, and we stopped at a military port for lunch. And I was sitting there, and here comes my cousin, Waldo Stuckey.
Oh, I've never heard this story.
No, you.
Okay.
He was coming back from the front, and I was going over to Germany.
Oh,
And we just sat there. We couldn't eat. We just sat there on the tailgate and talked.
how nice.
But what a coincidence to find a cousin
Yes.
in France.
Good for you. And he was able to go home then.
He was going. He was on his way home.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So then from there, we boarded B-17. They didn't have seats in there. They just had benches, And there were 6 of us. And as we were going over the Alps, the pilot came up to me and said, "Would you like to sit in the co-pilot seat and see the country?" I said, "Sure." So I sat in the co-pilot seat, going over the Alps, and then we landed in Frankfurt, and we had a truck to take us to Bad Mergentheim, and that's where I was stationed at.
Now, the hospital name, I think it's on your uniform here. Do you remember the name of the hospital there?
138
Okay.
evac hospital.
Okay, wonderful.
Mhm.
Now, were you just taking care of American soldiers or Allied soldiers.
Yes, there was an Air Force base not too far,
Okay.
and we had some of those. We also had soldiers coming back from the front, and they were still in Germany, but they had health issues, and we took care of them. And
what kind of issues did you see as far as, do you remember some of those?
broken arms, broken legs, abdominal punctures. Some of them had mental problems also, and it was quite a variety.
Okay. And it was a big hospital?
Yes, it was. Well, I would say around 200 patients, the whole 200 patients.
Yeah, I consider that pretty big.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, if we had a party or dinner, it was either spam or we had no fresh meat, we had no fresh vegetables, nothing like that, and that was hard. But
well,
we survived.
I've heard stories about that from other men too. I didn't realize it went after the war as well, because
we didn't have the supplies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me about some of the medicines that you were using and working with, and that penicillin you thought quite a lot of.
I can remember my first penicillin shot. It was in 1944, and penicillin had just come into use a year or so before. Before all we had was sulfa to take care of the wounds, and penicillin was that was a lifesaver.
Okay. So like a wonder drug for you. Okay.
It was
good.
Yeah. And now I think of the advance that medical technology has taken. We could have saved so many, but we didn't have the technology.
How did you handle did you feel stress?
At times I felt stressed, but one thing, when I was at Ashford General in West Virginia, they had 3 golf courses. So on a day off, a couple of the enlisted men showed me how to hold a club.
Okay.
And I played golf.
Oh,
so
sure.
that was something that I could do. And then when I was stationed in Germany, there was a riding stable that was down in the town, and if we had a day off, we'd go down there and rent these horses and ride around. These are things that we could do. It was a lot of work, but I had an R&R to the Bavarian Alps, and I learned to ski there. And so there were things that we could do.
Well, before we run out of time, and I'll look at my watch just to make sure, I wanted to talk about these beautiful uniforms here. These were your uniforms.
They were my uniforms.
And
I can't wear them anymore.
Well, they're different in a way. So why don't we start with this one right here? You said this was your dress uniform.
This was
correct?
a dress uniform.
I mean, it is a skirt.
Yes.
But
yes, we also had pants.
Yes, I have a picture of you wearing pants.
Yes, yes.
Now, had you ever worn pants before you went into the military?
No,
okay.
No, it was always skirts.
I had another lady tell me that was the first time she wore pants.
Yeah, and then when we went overseas, we had pants.
Okay. Now, you had to purchase your own uniforms.
We had to purchase our own uniforms.
I just want to give everybody a good look at this. It's very beautiful.
Well, I don't have a tie there yet, but it was the same color as the shirt.
Okay.
Ties. And my rank when I got out was first lieutenant.
Okay.
then this was we called them the Eisenhower jackets.
And this is, I'm gonna lift that up because it had the very short waist.
Right.
It's there's the waist right in here, and that's what General Eisenhower at the time.
That's right, we called them the Eisenhower jackets.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Ike jackets, I've even heard them called that. And they were very popular.
Yes.
Very, very popular, yeah, that's great. And in fact, I'm gonna show the patch here. Well, I don't know that you'll be able to see it.
It was the 8th Army.
Yes, a lot of people love patches, so I'm trying to just kind of show that there. And these have been on display, and they just look like they've never been worn. But you would have had these a couple of years, correct? You wore them?
Yes,
okay.
as long as I was in.
Now you didn't wear these to work, right? These
no,
were
these were dress uniforms.
okay.
As I told you, we wore white uniforms
Okay.
in the States and seersucker uniforms in overseas.
And the skirt, you said overseas, was a little different.
Yeah, it was a brown and white seersucker and it tied.
A wraparound.
Wraparound.
I can't imagine. I've never seen that, so I'd have to look for that. And now, and you paid, are these wool here? This one doesn't look wool. That one looks heavier.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay.
But
when you came home, did you just put these away then? Is that what you did with them?
May I
Absolutely.
May I go back
Yes.
to tell you something that happened on Christmas Eve?
Yes, please do.
Okay. On Christmas Eve in Bad Liver time in the service, we had a Christmas Eve party. It was an officer's party, and we had, of course, I think it wasn't very very fancy, but the food was GI food. Anyway, we had a band, and they were playing, and we had some German people in there helping serve, and so they decided to play Silent Night, and I stood up and I sang Silent Night in German. And you should have seen the faces of those German people that were there. The tears were running down to think that an American person would sing Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht.
You can sing it for us if you want to.
Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht, alles schlägt einsam wacht, nur das heilige Elternpaar, das in Stalle zu Bethlehem war, bei dem himmlischen Kind, bei dem himmlischen Kind. That was German.
Did you grow up knowing that, or did
No,
you
I
just...
had 2 years of German in high school.
Okay, but you knew it before you went over. Oh.
I sang it in church many times.
Oh, okay. Well, that is cool.
I'm
That's
sorry,
a great story. I am spellbound. Could we get a volunteer to come and hold the quilt here? I wanted to showcase some of the items that you have collected over the years that friends have given you. And this is a beautiful quilt, but I don't remember the name of the woman who made that for you.
I have to think about it.
I don't want you to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Those are pictures that have been put onto fabric that are of Eileen and
My family.
yes, the family, and then further on in the front row, top row, are her in Germany with some other nurses.
Right,
Is that
and
right?
those were our uniforms. You can see
Okay.
see the uniforms there.
And the third picture from the end is you and your brother Leslie.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And then there's a couple of other pictures here. I have a shorter story about Eileen in my second book. They did it for honor. And so that's the cover of that book there. And then there's other pictures, her dog tags. The bottom row then is dedicated to the honor flight of Northeast Indiana, which we both think is made up of people that have little halos going on up here, because she has been on the honor flight, and I've been very fortunate to be a guardian of two. I took two vets. I was thrilled, 2 World War II vets. And so these are some great pictures. And Eileen, you were honored to be one to chosen to put the wreath on the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. What year was that? Do you remember what? 2014, which I think is right down there in the middle. And you want to come here, Alita? We're going to ask Alita Weiss, who is actually on the board of the Honor Flight of Northeast Indiana, to tell us about the wreath there. She has made several of those that our groups have put on.
Here's a wreath, and I make it to put on the tomb. I've now made about 8 of them, and we're having 6 flights this year as far as I know, and I got 5 wreaths to make for each flight. So it's just an honor to me. My dad was a World War II veteran, and that's what started me with the honor flight. I just loved going. He was not able to go. But anyway, that is very dear to me, and it's very, very heartwarming to see my wreath on the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Thank you, thank you. And this is one of the shirts that, this is Eileen's shirt that they issue to all of the veterans who are part of that group. Thanks, thank you, Louie.
And Dennis Colbert.
Yes.
Who was chairman of
Yep.
The honor flight. He escorted me there, and then there were 2 others in wheelchairs that were there, but Dennis and I put the wreath on. And then when they started playing taps, boy, that's when the tears flew.
It's a huge
It's an
day.
emotional thing.
It is.
Yeah.
If you have access to an honor flight group in your area, please get involved. And I just sent some thank you notes that will be part of our mailbag, and you don't have to handwrite them. I had to do it on the computer, but if you're a teacher, you could have kids do it in their classroom. And they, our mailbags are hefty. They're huge. People from all over the place send them in, and it's a huge thing for the men. When I've gone to interview veterans, they often have their honor flights mailbag stuff out for me to see. So, okay, is there anything else we should talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, I think we've kind of covered everything, unless there's something you wanted to ask me.
Oh, let me get back to my questions. I'll see. What was it like returning to normal after the war?
Oh my gosh. Well, I must tell you how, when I was in Marseille, I was supposed to be shipped to the South Pacific because the VJ thing hadn't happened yet.
There was a possibility we were going to invade Japan.
Right. And I was stationed, I went to Marseille, and lo and behold, VJs came.
Which was August 9th, I think that's right.
And we just...
Oh, I'm sorry, September.
We couldn't believe it. We were so excited. So then they didn't know what to do with us, see? And I looked on the bulletin board, and I saw that they were asking for a nurse to work in the nursery with babies of 200 war brides that would be leaving in 2 weeks for the States. I signed up.
Okay.
And so we boarded there in Marseille. Of course, we had to go over the English Channel. I was sicker than a dog. So was everybody else. but I had 50 babies to take care of. And that was the first time I had any fresh vegetables or any good meat. And it was wonderful. So it took us a few days to get to New York, and I disembarked, went to Fort Dix. They said, "Would you like to re-enlist?" I says, "No." And so.
And it was 1946 by this time.
Yes, 1946. It was, and I said, "I want to go home." So I got on a train and came to Fort Wayne, and got a taxi to go to my aunt's house because she lived in Fort Wayne. I called my folks and my mother, and by that time my oldest brother was home, and they came and got me. My dad was working at Zollner Pistons, you know, on the third shift, and so we stopped, and the guy in the gateway called my dad. He came out to see me, and I could give him a hug.
Good.
So then I got home, and I thought, I'm not gonna do any more nursing. I'm fed up. No more nursing. My brother Leslie bought the Palmer House in Bern, and
which was a restaurant.
And he said, "Would you come and work for me?" And I said, "Okay." I worked for 2 weeks and decided nursing wasn't so bad.
Okay.
So I went to Lutheran. They had a position in surgery.
Okay.
So I worked as a surgical nurse in surgery, and then went back on the floor. And so that was my homecoming.
And then you got married and had a family.
That's right. I met my husband. He was a master sergeant. He spent 5 years in the service. Wow. He was overseas in England all during the bombing. And I met him, and we clicked and ended up with 5 kids.
Okay.
So, and we had a small house in Waynedale, and then later on, when the 4th child was here and 1 in the oven, I decided we better move to a farm, which I had never lived on a farm, but my husband wanted it. So we lived on a 75-acre farm in Roanoke. That's where I raised my children.
Very good. Well, if you want to learn more about Eileen and some of these other plucky women just like her, get a copy of my book. It's at Amazon. It's called Born to be Soldiers, Those Plucky Women of World War II. And thank a vet today for his or her service. And thanks to all of those watching and your families, because you need your support system, and I know what that's like. And we just thank you so much for preserving our freedoms. So thanks for joining us today. And let me ask Alita, though, first of all, do we have a winner of our free book?
Werner McCoy.
Werner McCoy. I'll be in touch with you. We had you put your birth dates because we were going to then choose the one that was closest to Eileen's birthday, which is September 27th. So according to Alita, you were the winner. So I'll be in touch to get your book to you. Thanks to everyone for watching today. We really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the book, and then review it on Amazon so more people can see it. All right, take care.